Okay, welcome everybody. This is the February 2026 Bicycle Advisory Committee meeting. Today's date is February 2nd, 2026. It is 7:06 p.m. My name is Alan Gonzalez. I'm the Transportation Planner / Staff Liaison to the Bicycle Advisory Committee, and I'll hand it off to Cynthia Palmer, who's the chair of the BAC.
Hey, good evening. Thank you so much. Welcome to the BAC. We'll start with introductions, and so you can say your name, and then the question tonight for everyone to answer is please share any reflections you have relating to the snow and ice conditions in Arlington and the county's response, or how you've been getting around this week. So I'll answer first. I'm Cynthia Palmer, and I've actually been running a lot to get around. I had a close encounter with the ice in December. I don't want to repeat that. It was really painful. So I've been running, but that's actually been really challenging for many of the same reasons that bicycling is challenging right now, particularly the snowbanks. Every intersection is a snow mountain, and I end up just like running in the streets because you can't get to the sidewalk um, even if the residents or businesses have actually shoveled, which is not always. So yeah, a little bit challenging. The trails are partially cleared, very partially. So anyway, that's me. Andrew Martin is next.
Hey, Andrew Martin, Arlington Heights. Mostly just been at home walking around, on a warmer afternoon. And yeah, my neighborhood it seems that most sidewalks at this point are cleared except for kind of the occasional homeowner. And then of course, yeah, the intersections it's nice when someone's carved a path through the mountains, but that's not always the case.
Thank you. And David Ansell. I cannot hear you. Should we come back? Okay, we'll come back to David. And next we have Elliot.
Hi. For me, it's been honestly kind of not biking much just because of the weather. I've been going for walks or biking inside on the trainer. Because yeah, the paths are a little bit of a mess and it's hard enough to walk, much less try and do it on a bike. So hoping for some warmer weather.
Yeah, hopefully. Elwin is next.
Hey, this is Ellen. Yeah, in my neighborhood in DC, it's been pretty covered in snow. I'd say by now it's pretty clear, but several snowbanks have formed in the curbs. So I went out there actually this morning to clear one of the curb cuts. But yeah, it was really tough trying to move that snowcrete around. So I just cleared one curb cut. But yeah, I'm lucky to have most amenities within walking distance to my neighborhood. But I did bike on Saturday to go watch a movie down the MBT trail, which is cleared.
Great. Thank you for making that curb cut. Next we have Eric Goodman.
I can't really talk right now. I'm on the metro, but my general feelings are mixed. Some things good, some things not so good. Thanks.
Thank you. And next we have Mike Hanna.
Yeah, I've not had the bike out since it started. And yeah, it's most of the bike lanes are not great. They're just gone. And I don't know that we have a way to clear them at this point. If the county even has that equipment to do it. So I'm talking about like the bike, the protected bike lanes where you can't get a snowplow in there, and yeah. So and a lot of the sidewalks. I'm also in Arlington Heights, but there are quite a few streets where people shoveled out their car by shoveling all the snow over the sidewalk, and so now there are mounds over the sidewalk. So it's a challenge. But I don't think things are going to get a lot better until it gets warmer at this point.
Yeah. All right. Randy.
Well, my entire physical fitness effort has been shoveling snow for the last X days. I've blasted through 3 of those curb cut mounds, and I'm using a mattock, a full-size 12-pound mattock with a blade on one end and a pick on the other end. And the pick, actually had to use the pick at some points because the blade would not go through the snowcrete. So I'm not expecting to ride anytime soon. And I think, Steve, the answer to the question of why were the trails cleared before, this is not a normal snow, and the county just doesn't have the equipment to do it. So they're prioritizing, and for most people, it ain't bicycles. So
Thanks, Randy. Thanks for those 3 curb cuts. Every bit counts. And next we have Aaron.
Yeah, I'm going to give Arlington a B or C letter grade on this one. I think it's an impossible system to deal with. 20 inches, it would have been 20 inches of snow had it come down as snow, is what I have heard. We're not cut out for that. And when we had those things, 10 years ago or something, we had the similar kind of issues that just lasted forever and the excessive cold. So, I'll go back to school tomorrow for the first time, and we'll see how it goes. I think the only takeaways from this are they prioritizing the pedestrian experience, mass transit, and people just walking around for things they need to do. And I'd rather see, like I saw in my nothing neighborhood, bobcats working real hard to widen intersections where there's no hills, there's no issues of seeing. It's a dead end block, and you got 3 bobcats working for an hour on 2 different intersections that really don't matter. So I'd rather have seen them really hit some of these really terrible curb cuts around, or prioritize the school areas, because I know there's a lot of schools that are still in pretty bad shape for tomorrow. So it's going to be a shit show tomorrow. Can I say that on the recording? Sorry. It's going to be
It's too late now.
too late. It'll be challenging, but I'm hopeful, and it's starting to melt already today. It was great.
Thank you. Next we have Sean Martin.
Hi everyone, Sean Martin. I'm the Capital Bike Share and SMD Program Manager for the county. Started a couple months ago, but I'll elaborate on that a little bit momentarily. I've been predominantly getting around walking in my area down in Shirlington. Sidewalks are generally good here, but of course there's like choke points where it narrows, where you can't have like someone crossing in one direction like ahead of you, and you have to kind of make way and go one at a time, especially at some of the intersections there. And I do just want to apologize for my voice. I am getting over a cold, so if I sound like a frog, it's not my normal voice, but I think I can get through it tonight.
Thank you. And Steve O.
Yeah, so I'm going to push back a little bit on Randy, because there is in fact a snow clearing plan that has the major trails listed as phase 2. So that means that they come before phase 3 and phase 4. And when I went to report the Custis, the website said they were already on phase 4, which meant that they were supposed to have already cleared those trails. Now, I agree with the protected bike lanes and those kinds of things might be extraordinarily difficult, but we do have the equipment to clear the Custis Trail, and we do have the equipment to clear the Bluemont Trail, and those were supposed to be cleared in phase 2, according to the county's own plan. So their prioritization was already in the plan, right? So, and now, I mean, I don't know if you're suggesting that they just decided to change the prioritization after the fact because this storm was somehow different, or cyclists were less important this year than they were in past years, or pedestrians. In particular, on the Custis, there's 3 sections that are highly important for pedestrians: the Ballston connector, the Roslyn area. Anyone who lives on the north side of Langston has to use the Custis to get to the metro. There's really no other way to get across, to get down the hill and across. I mean, it's literally the only way to go. And then out near East Falls Church, same thing. To get from those neighborhoods to the East Falls Church Metro requires the trail be cleared, earlier than, phase 4 dead ends, in other parts of the county. So, anyway, that's my point. Is like, I looked online, it said it should be phase 2. My experience was that a lot of the phase 2 trails weren't cleared during phase 2 or phase 3 at all. Now, that said, I still rode all over the place. I mean, you got right on the main roads. Probably my most humorous experience was on the night of the storm. We walked over to a friend's house about a mile away, and we had to walk on Langston because, of course, there was no other place to walk. But there were no cars out. But the one truck that happened to come by honked at us like we were like in the wrong place. It was like, where are we supposed to be? And why are you out in your truck? You're supposed to be at home.
So, not to interrupt, but I'm wondering, Steve, should we, as a committee, ask specifically, is that policy still in place? Is the plan still in place? And why was the Custis not, what are we misunderstanding about the plan? And get some kind of response
it's
from
right on the website now. So like when I went there to report, it talked about the different phases. And I think I read it correctly, that the main trails are part of phase 2. And so I would hope that if it's still on the website, it would mean it's still active. But yeah, I mean, we could ask that. I mean, we could ask the question, how come the phases that are listed on the website were ignored?
Can you imagine taking that big roller equipment out to brush the snow off of a trail? This snow, it ain't going to work. I don't see what you're not seeing here. This is a major event, and the snow is very different from the snow that the county has planned for. And
Aaron just told me that there were bobcats.
No plan for this snow.
I'm still saying, but 8 days later, when parts of the major trails are still uncleared and the bobcats are out clearing intersections near unused streets, there is a priority problem there. Those bobcats can if they can clear a street intersection, they can clear the Custis Trail.
Might be a matter of funding and who's in charge of doing this stuff. If it's parks in charge of that, they don't have the bobcat contract. The county does. The county's got the hundreds of millions of dollars to contract those things out.
So these all seem like legitimate questions. We have been trying to get the snow clearing staff from the county to join us for a meeting. They have not accepted our invitation, but this suggests we should keep trying because these are legitimate questions. I don't have the answers. I do agree with some that pedestrians ought to be the first priority. And there, I mean, it's not been good either. It's really difficult to get around and cross the streets or get onto any sidewalks. So lots of good questions. And Elwin and I will keep trying um, to get staff in, and alternatively, maybe we can send some of these questions to the appropriate people and try and get answers. So thank you so much. And why don't we, let's see, no other hands, no other people. Why don't we move right along? We're just on time to introduce the new Capital Bike Share and Shared Mobility Program Manager. I believe that is Sean.
Yes, it is. I do
Yes.
see a hand up, Eric, if you had something to chime in before I start with my slides.
Yeah, when you asked about where things are bad and where things are good, I have to say that one of the things that I do appreciate about the county is they have cleared most of the overpasses over the highways. The sidewalks were cleared well, and I'm not sure what they used. They were pretty wide, so they must have used a bobcat on those sidewalks. But I have to say that that's one of the better things that I've seen from the county. And then there's some others that don't make the grade. So thank you.
I think there are also many that are not cleared, the overpasses, but I'm sure there are some that are as well. All right, Sean, your turn. Welcome.
All right, thank you. Let me go ahead and share my screen here real quick. All right, can everyone see my slides?
Yes.
All right, I see thumbs up. All right, so once again, my name is Sean Martin. I'm the new Capital Bike Share and SMD Program Manager. So I manage all things for Capital Bike Share and the scooter programs for the county. I come here by way of City of Alexandria previously, where I managed all things bike share down there. So I'm going to give you kind of a couple of ridership and program updates for both of these programs, and I'll stand for any questions that you have after. Okay, there we go. So starting with Capital Bike Share. So state of the system, there's currently 111 Capital Bike Share stations in the county. In the last year, we did 15 replacement stations. So we've been going through a state of good repair and replacing stations that are at least 10 years old throughout the county. So 15 of those are replaced. These are being replaced by a new station type. They're called pillar docks. There's an image of one that was done just off the pike here. These are really cool because they're more of a modular design. So in the future, when we do expansions, we have a bit more flexibility in how we site and structure these stations. It's a more fluid process for docking and releasing bikes, and they all have individual solar panels as well, which can help to open up some new siting opportunities. There's currently a little under 1,300 bikes that the county owns as part of the larger system. I believe system-wide, we're at a little over 8,000 bikes between the 8 different jurisdictions in the system. But for what the county owns, we own almost 750 pedal bikes and a little over 500 e-bikes. And here's a graph of ridership over time. So this is from the beginning of the system back in 2010 through the end of this past year. And these numbers are specifically for Arlington start trips only. So we can see how ridership grew over time from system inception through 2017. Started to dip a little bit 2018 and 2019 when the SMD program came into play and we started to have scooter vendors coming in, and of course it dipped more with COVID, and it has skyrocketed since then. I'll call it 2023 is when the new e-bikes first started hitting the streets. It was April of 2023, and we've seen that really fuel a lot of the new ridership that we've been seeing over the last couple of years. So the top stations by ridership in the county, these again are based on trip starts that are originating at these stations. So the most popular station in the county is over at the Roslyn Metro, Wilson and Moore. Second place would be Clarendon Metro over at Wilson and Highland. And third place would be the station over at Gravelly Point. So there's about 569,000 trip starts in the county last year. Almost 2/3 of those were on those new e-bikes that came out just a couple of years ago, and a little over a third being on the traditional pedal bikes. We're seeing, as a average over the course of the last year, we're seeing about 1.4 trips per pedal bike per day, and about 6.4 trips per e-bike per day, and that's an average taken over the course of the entirety of 2025. So they've proven to be very popular for sure. And then moving over to SMDs, looking at shared micromobility. For the state of the program, we currently have 3 permitted operators for 2026. We recently went through our annual permitting process. So we have Bird and Lime, who are going to be incumbent operators. So they've been with the county for a while and they're going to continue to operate here. Bird is actually going to be swapping out their current fleet of those silver scooters to their new, it's an orange Bird 4 model, as they're calling it. So it'll be the orange scooter here. And so they're going to be a newer scooter. They're going to be like not quite as beat up as the silver ones are. And Bird is planning on doing that swap starting, I believe, either later this week or into next week. Snow course, kind of put a damper on those plans there. So we'll be seeing these new scooters from Bird hitting the streets. And I do also want to call out a new company, Jiku, who's going to be deploying again later this week or into next week. That is a South Korean company. So they're very popular in South Korea and Vietnam and such. And then they're in a few jurisdictions in the US. So they're in Los Angeles, Memphis, Tennessee. They started in Alexandria last year. And they'll be coming to Arlington this year as well. And they're going to have those kind of like that highlighter green and black scooter that you see in the corner there. And then you can see the numbers of the fleet caps that each operator is going to have on the sides here. So Bird and Jiku are going to have only scooters, Lima is going to have scooters and their e-bikes. Here's ridership over time for the SMD program. This is going to be a composite of all operators who were here at that time. So we see that 2019, of course, right before COVID is when they first kind of came here and things kind of went down and then have steadily grown since then. So there was over 740,000 trip starts in 2025 from our SMD operators in the county. About 89% of those trips were on scooters and 11% were on e-bikes. We're seeing about 1.8 trips per scooter per day. Again, this is over the course of the entirety of 2025. So the slow ridership season and high ridership season kind of put together there. And about 1.7 trips per e-bike per day as well. And that's what I got. And I'll stand for any questions about either program.
I'll start. I'm just a little confused. Those numbers sound really low to me, like 1.7 trips per day, or earlier she said 1.4 per day per bike. Isn't that very few? Like, I would think those bikes get used more.
So in the summer seasons, of course, ridership goes up significantly compared to the lower ridership season that we're in now. So these numbers, just to I just give like a hypothetical. So say there's 100 pedal bikes, and there's certainly a lot more than that, but if there's 100 pedal bikes and the utilization is 1.4, that's 140 trips on those 100 bikes every single day as that average. So we definitely see much higher numbers in the summer months. So typically higher ridership season is going to be like early April, sometimes even early into or late into March. especially around cherry blossoms. Like the highest ridership season or highest ridership day that the system has ever had was actually during the Cherry Blossom Festival last year, and it was like almost 40,000 trips system-wide just on that one day. So the fact the numbers might seem a little bit low is going to be because it's taking into account the lower ridership season as well as the higher ridership season.
So that's the whole entire year, even like days like today.
Exactly, where no
Okay.
one is really riding. Yeah, yes.
Exactly. Okay. Okay. That makes more sense. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Aaron?
Yeah, thanks for coming, Sean. First, you also did say the e-bikes, cabbie e-bikes are 6.4 per day average. So that makes Cynthia feel better. That's an impressive number, actually. I'm curious on those. Do any of those charge in those new pillar docks, or do they all have to go home to charge?
So DC has a few stations. They have 4 right now that do charge the e-bikes when they are docked. We don't have any of those yet in Arlington, but we are evaluating some options to be able to incorporate that feature in some of our stations.
Yeah, I imagine electrification is a challenging thing, but um, I love the Capital Bike Share stuff, except when the service trucks are blocking the bike lanes, as they sometimes do. Um, do you have a system where I've tried to use a bike share bike before and had no choice but to take the e-bike because there weren't any pedal bikes there, which is my preference on a short, easy trip. Do you have any effort to distribute the pedal bikes on purpose, or is it just where things end up?
So we do have rebalancing SLAs. They are bike type agnostic. So when there's a certain number of bikes that need to be available at a station, it's not currently broken up between the different types of bikes. So if a rebalancer has pedal bikes in their vehicle and they're assigned to bring bikes to an empty station, they'll bring the bikes that they have at that time.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know it's more complicated if you do try to specify, but if I was going to pick up a bike in Roslyn and have to ride up to Clarendon, I would want the e-bike. But the reverse trip, I don't care. So that'd be an interesting thing for you guys to look at.
Certainly. One thing I'll add to what I was saying actually. So with e-bikes in particular, we do have an agreement with our operator to ensure that we have within a little bit of a margin of error a number of e-bikes within the county based on the number of e-bikes that the county has actually purchased. So that ensures that the investments that the county is making into the system for those e-bikes is benefiting the county, and they're not just kind of wandering off into other jurisdictions that may not be investing the way that Arlington is. So that's not going to be a station by station thing, but that's a jurisdictional thing.
Yeah, that's smart. Um, Last quick question. The micro mobility devices, are any of them allowed to cross the bridges?
So it depends on the jurisdiction that they'd be going to. So like Arlington County has our own permitting process with different operators who are permitted to operate here. If they are crossing into Alexandria, it depends on which operators are permitted in Alexandria as well. If they're going to DC, same deal. So there's some operators who do operate in many jurisdictions in the greater DC area. Some are a bit more piecemeal. So at the end of the day, it just depends on where those operators are actually permitted to operate on a jurisdiction by jurisdiction basis.
Yeah, it's just that's been a perennial problem of the bikes being ditched, at the GW Parkway or near the bridges or in the middle of a bridge or something like that because of those issues. And I know it's a tough nut to crack, but definitely something that causes issues. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Andrew?
Yeah, I guess follow up to that is, I guess, any chances for like better coordination on the like across jurisdictions to say like, hey, we choose Lime or we choose Bird or whoever.
So there's been some, I'd say, like high-level conversations around that because each jurisdiction has their own process, and then that process is usually baked into that jurisdiction's code. It's not something that's easy to change, but we do coordinate in terms of like information sharing, and because a lot of us do have some like relationships with the same like staff with all these various operators. So to share information, we share our experiences with them, who's been like compliant with their operational metrics, and who hasn't been, that kind of a thing. But when it comes to like deciding like together, like, okay, like we're all going to permit the same operator, that kind of thing, that is not something that we specifically do. And it does start to create issues if we were to try to coordinate with each other in these separate processes.
Okay. And do you know if they like change the size of their fleet throughout the year? So like if Lime has max 450, do they have 450 out right now?
So typically operators are going to be a little bit under their actual cap, partly so they have a little bit of leeway so they don't start going above the cap, especially for operators who do operate in multiple jurisdictions. So for example, like Lime is in Arlington and DC and Alexandria, so their vehicles are going back and forth between all these jurisdictions, so they need to have a little bit of buffer room in their cap to accommodate for vehicles that are crossing those jurisdictional lines, so they're not going over those caps there.
Okay. And then I guess switching over to bike share, I might be one of the more active users on this call. With the new kiosks, I'm a beneficiary of that here next to me at TJ. I do miss the little mechanic button to kind of easily report a problem with the ride. And then I guess the new stations also like don't have any kind of kiosk. Has that had any kind of effect on like, the casual tourist use of the system?
So I'll take the second question first. So we did an analysis of how many trips are actually originating from kiosks versus just through the app or whatever. And it's a very small number of trips that were actually originating through the kiosk. So the county is actually able to save money by not having kiosks at most of the new stations that we're doing. Um, there are a few locations like high touristy areas that we may choose to keep a kiosk or invest into putting kiosk in if we are going to be like replacing the whole station. But for the most part, very, very few trips actually originated from the kiosks in the first place. As for missing the wrench button, that is certainly a valid concern. If you don't want to go through the app to try to report broken bikes and such, one thing you can do is rent that bike and then immediately dock it again, and the system will detect that you're basically saying that there's an issue with this bike, and that basically takes the place of the wrench button that's on the older stations.
Gotcha. Yeah, and then I guess comment is I'm I'm certainly swayed by the Bike Angels program, so I might go slightly out of my way to pick up or return a bike depending on where I'm going, how much time, and how close the desired station is or the promoted station is to my destination.
Gotcha. Good to know. Elliot?
Hey, I just wanted to ask about like the increase in ridership number and was curious like if subsequent increase in investment or more permits were gonna be coming because of how quickly it's been growing.
Excuse me. So I'm sorry, you're asking about like new stations and such based on the increase in ridership?
Yeah, so for Capital Bike Share, like more stations or more e-bikes since the e-bikes are just being used so often. And then on the Bird slash the other micromobility, if you're gonna have more permits because more of them are being used every year.
Certainly. So we are looking at some expansion plans, both new stations and new bikes. Of course, because we've been part of the system for about 15 years now, the system celebrated 15 years back in September. We do have a lot of older stations that we are needing to replace. We are looking to add at least a few new stations every year, both infill and in new neighborhoods. And we're studying kind of ridership trends with the e-bikes and where they're being parked outside of stations. As one facet of teaching us where there is that kind of latent demand, kind of like a virtual desire path, if you will, for stations and parking. When it comes to increasing fleet sizes for our scooter operators, we do take that into account during those annual renewals. And operators who are seeing like very little ridership may be given fewer scooters because we don't want these vehicles to be taking up right-of-way space when they're not really being used. While operators who do see much higher utilization may be granted their full requests because we know that those vehicles are going to be used. They're not just taking up space, but they're actually being used productively by residents and visitors to the county. Any other questions? Cynthia?
Yes, we have heard so much about the budget recently and getting emails and what do you think? How do we save money in Arlington? And I don't even know with your programs, are they a cost? Are they a generator of income for Arlington? Like, how does the economics of this all work?
Sure. So, without getting into the nitty-gritty details, budgets. It's an unhappy budget season, certainly, because of aspects that are outside of our control. But when it comes to capital bike share, it is a net cost to the county, just like any other form of like county-owned public transportation. So the county does invest into it. The For the SMD program, that is going to be revenue positive for the county because these operators do pay, they pay application fees for staff to analyze and score their applications, and then they pay permit fees to deploy their vehicles in the county, and that helps to offset some of the county's costs when it comes to managing that program.
Great. And that, I guess, kind of explains why we have both then, like both programs.
Certainly, each one kind of fills that niche for micromobility. In some ways, they are very similar. It's two vehicles, two wheeled vehicle shared transportation, but then the vehicle offerings are to be different, both between capital bike share and SMDs, but also just between different SMD operators. Their scooters are going to have different features. Some have bikes, some don't have bikes. Those that do offer bikes, they'll have different features between them as well. So it just adds to the number of transportation choices that are available to county residents and visitors.
Very interesting. Thank you so much. One more question. Is there a lot of loyalty then, based on what you're saying, like loyalty to a particular company? Like people always get the same one? I mean, maybe Andrew and others can speak to this as well. It's not my forte, but
Certainly.
Capital bike share is like a third of the cost, so I only ride that one.
So I'd say in general, capital bike share does tend to be used more by locals and residents and such, which also kind of makes sense with it being a station-based system, while SMDs do tend to be used more by visitors to the county, which makes sense because you have, if someone is coming in from, say, somewhere in California, I'm not sure which operators specifically are permitted in which jurisdictions out there, but if someone's traveling from like another state where their city over there has Lime, they'd be able to come over here and they'd be able to use that same Lime account. So it makes sense that visitors will be using SMDs a bit more, but it's not to say that there isn't crossover. Some people might just use whatever is just closest to them. But then the structures of the programs kind of show that tendency where cabby dock based is used more by locals versus SMDs being used a little bit more by those who are traveling here. Randy?
Why is it when I see an abandoned, an obviously abandoned vehicle, that it's never a cabbie?
So the cabbie red bikes, the pedal bikes, do have to be docked at stations. They cannot be locked up outside of a station. And if you do happen to see one, definitely report it. because that has gone missing and needs to find its way home. The e-bikes, of course, can be parked outside of stations, while the dockless vehicles, the SMDs, they don't have a station to go to, though we do have over 100 parking corrals that we encourage people to utilize when they're parking the SMDs that they're using. Not everyone abides by that, which, of course, because it's a dockless system, they are free to park it where is convenient for them, preferably by public bike racks. But I think that difference in how the systems are structured might be causing some of what you're seeing there.
Okay, one more question, it looks like, and then we'll move on.
All right, Andrew?
Hey, yeah, coming back. Talking about, out of state or visitors, is there any, and maybe this is a bigger question, any value for like the Lyft slash Motivate managed systems, like, Cabi, or sorry, City Bike in New York or Divvy in Chicago, like having cross compatibility across those systems? Like if you're a member of one, that membership can count towards rides on the other systems.
So I can see the argument for that. The complicating factor is going to be the ownership for the systems. So for Capital Bike Share, Lyft, and their subcontract Motivate are purely contracted operators for the system. The equipment is all owned by the various jurisdictions. City Bike is different. City Bike is owned entirely by Lyft. So there's not going to be that kind of ability to just kind of share like memberships or something, for example, because the ownership is going to be different, and the divvy system is going to be different as well. So even though it's the same originator for the equipment, the ownership is what's going to be the complicating factor there.
Okay, no worries.
Thank you so much. This is all really interesting. And I think we're going to move on because we're a little bit over time. But that's because it was so interesting. So thank you.
No problem at all. Thank you, and great to meet you all.
Great to meet you. Thank you. All
Thanks,
right.
John.
Next up, we have Custis Trail status updates if Ellen is feeling up to this.
I'll do my best.
All right.
Yeah, so I guess in the immediate term, the DPR will be looking at doing some repaving on the Custis Trail. I'm not sure if y'all have heard. Within the next few months, they're still figuring out dates, but they're shooting before April this upcoming spring to start repaving from the S curve by the Lion Village Shopping Center to North Oak Street. Basically repaving the asphalt that's out there. Let's see, what else is there? Sorry. You may have seen on the BAC Google groups that we shared a notice that VDOT is doing some repair work for the North Stafford Street Bridge above the Custis Trail. So they don't anticipate doing any closure whatsoever, but you may see some equipment being moved around. They're hoping to start last week, but obviously with the snow situation, that's probably going to be on hold for the next few weeks. Yeah, just giving everyone a heads up. I could give you a more definite date once we hear more, but they're hoping not to do any actual work on the trail itself. And then long term, we are looking at doing some more implementation as part of the Custis Trail study, basically implementing several of the recommendations that have been called out. So we have applied for regional funding from the NVTA to pursue design work for the entirety of the trail. So still waiting to hear back on that. So ideally, we want to get some assistance in terms of, we have planning level estimates for things, but now we need some more like nitty-gritty engineering work to take a look at what actually needs to be done to improve the trail, not just the widths of the trail for potential widening in certain locations, but also improving access at several of the trailheads. But yeah, hopefully hear back soon from them. But regardless, the county is still moving forward with doing short-term and long-term improvements to the trail. And then we're also looking to see if we could do some quick build projects within the next year. But obviously the budget situation is making things a little might be slowing things down a little bit, just depending on how things pan over the next few months. Yeah, that's mostly it. And if anyone has any questions about the Custis Trail. Nice of you.
So, I'll start. So, the first location you mentioned from the S curve to North Oak Street, does that include the moguls then for the repaving?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Do they have a plan for the moguls so that it works this time? Do you know?
Yeah, from what I hear, there will be repaving in kind to what's out there. But they are looking into a long-term fix. But it's going to be, not just a repavement project. It's going to be something much more substantial. And from what I hear, DPR is working with VDOT and their contractor to do something that's more long-term to maintain stability for that area.
So that would be a separate project later. Like when they repave now, they'll just like pave it as it is with the with the little hills there.
No,
Yeah,
so back in the old days, the moguls would come back every few years and they'd mill and repave and it would be smooth again for a while. And then it would take, I don't know, 2 to 5 years for them to kind of come back again. They did that, numerous times, and then eventually when it was 2017, I think it was, maybe it was later, they did that giant project where they, dug down 4 feet and they refilled everything. And, and that actually worked for a little bit longer, but they've come back, especially in that one section. And, my question would have been, have we gone back to that original engineering company who did that and on warranty, get them to fix it, because they didn't. And that was supposed to be the permanent fix, right? So that was the whole reason they had to shut the trail down for that whole section, for a significant period of time, because they were going to make a permanent fix, and it wasn't permanent. So did it give us a 10-year warranty? Then we should probably call them up and say, hey, it didn't work. I mean, is that in the plan? Have we been in touch with the original contractor, Owen, to find out like why it didn't work and what they did wrong so that we don't make the same mistake again?
yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, and
I
at a
would highly
prior
recommend
meeting,
that. Like, find out exactly what they did and then make sure that we don't do the same thing, right? I mean, that would be just foolish waste of money.
it came up at a prior meeting, and there was some talk about it maybe having been VDOT that was responsible for like oversight of the Custis mogul repaving. I don't know.
Yeah,
It'd be interesting to find out, but we're not going to solve that right now.
I mean,
David.
we've asked the question several times, Owen, and I don't think you've ever followed up to find out who was the original contractor, what did they do? Have we ever followed up? Have we brought it up to them that it didn't work? Do they say, sorry, we feel badly, we'll do it over? Or, I mean, has there been any whatsoever communication with the previous contractor about it or not? I mean, is that something you can find out?
Yeah, I could take a look at that again. But like I said, DPR is working with VDOT and their contractor. I'm not sure if it's the same one or if it's a new contractor or whatnot.
Yeah, okay. I mean, we've asked the question before, so would you mind checking this time?
It may not be that easy to. I've written to Mark Schwartz about it, and I mean, a lot of questions have been asked, but yeah, I'm not sure that whoever was behind it wants to share all the data. But we will keep looking and
I mean, it
trying
shouldn't
to
be that
get
hard to find out
answers.
who did the work, right? I mean, it should be in the records in the county. I mean, someone can look that up.
David.
Yeah, Elwin, you mentioned, and I may have missed it, but you mentioned with respect to the bigger project of reimagining the Custis Trail, widening it, the entry points, doing a kind of a big improvement. And I think we had a ride about a year and a half ago where we talked about a lot of these things. What did you say the process was? I think you said that the county has applied to someone for funding, and could you elaborate a little more on what that looks like?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, David. So it's, we're looking at doing design work for the entirety of the trail, not trying to knock it out in one fell swoop. But then when we actually do construction, it'll probably be done in phases, for the entire 4.5 miles of the trail. So we're looking at multiple sources of funding opportunities. So one source is the NVTA, which just stands for, let me Google that real quick, the Northern Virginia uh, Transportation Authority, which provides funding for, regionally significant projects, such as, metro, interstate interchanges, but they also do some funding for regional trail work as well. So we would apply for that last year, and we're waiting to hear back on that. But we'll obviously keep looking for other opportunities to see if we could get any assistance.
And does the county must provide some of the funding, right?
I think it's completely, from what I understand, it's completely 100% funded from the regional agency.
Okay.
It's not like a VDOT grant where it's like we have like local source or local match,
Interesting. Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Aaron.
Yeah, I kind of lost track of the timeline on the section closer to Roslyn that there's that survey out recently where we were asked about, what do you think about this block? What do you think about that block? And there's some weird suggestions in there about like making the trail zig and zag away from the intersection so you cross where cars aren't expecting you to cross or something. I'm just wondering if you are keeping an eye on that and can help us kind of keep a track of what's happening with that.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I forgot to mention that. The study that you're mentioning is called the STAR study. It's being led by VDOT. It's between North Vite Street to North Lynn Street. So it's basically just like a safety study for that section of Langston Boulevard, which includes portions of the Custis Trail. So they wrapped up their public engagement, I believe, in December, and now we're working with them on putting together the final touches on the study, which should be done by this summer. So you may have seen some of those concepts, like you mentioned, the zigzagging around the intersections. So they're still, finessing some of those details.
Yeah, is Arlington providing any expert opinions on that? Because I'm not a fan of that idea, and I think there's better things you can do with Langston in that area, like not make it 3 lanes, for example. But is Arlington really kind of voicing strong opinions on, or are we just waiting to see if the Department of Automobiles comes by with a plan that favors automobiles?
Yeah, Arlington County is very much a partner in the study. There's been some back and forth on details and things to fix. So I don't believe we've finalized anything with them yet, but I could circle back with y'all if that's helpful.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
So it says on their website that they'll finish the study by mid 2026, but I imagine that there's more meetings that will be occurring between the county and the state for the next few months.
All right, so I'll be retired before I have to worry about it. It's good.
Andrew.
Do we know effects that the 1501 Langston Boulevard project, that commercial building right off of North Oak Street, will have on the Custis? Or are planning to maintain access during construction whenever that actually happens?
Yeah, the old Air Force Association building. So it's currently in the, sorry, my dog's bugging me right now. Yeah, we received the plans they submit like actual request plans to have this be reviewed. So that's currently being reviewed by the county at the time. So we've seen some preliminary details in terms of widening the trail, but things are still pretty much in flux. They just submitted their application, I believe, in December. So yeah, long story short, they are going to be proposing to improve the trail along their frontage of Langston Boulevard, and they'll also be widening the sidewalks along Oak Street as well. But there's still some back and forth on details regarding like sound walls and tree plantings and what have you. And y'all may have seen the news that there's also another development that's proposed east at the old Marriott building. So there's a lot of moving pieces that are happening along the Custis Trail, especially in Roslyn.
Yeah, I really hope they decide to get rid of that counterflow traffic lane up there. For Oak Street is such a nothing road. To have that left turn option to get to Nash is seems silly to me, and causes more problems for the Custis Trail.
Are those developments in the site plan review process at this point? Or is there an opportunity for us to review and be involved through a site plan process?
I'm not sure how that works. Definitely the one that Andrew brought up is in the pipeline, but I'm not sure if that's going to be going to any kind of public engagement.
I've got that project pulled up on the website. It says February 9th to 19th. There's an online engagement opportunity coming soon.
Thanks, Andrew.
That's for the old Marriott site or the other one?
The other one, the Oak Street one.
Okay. I'm guessing that the Marriott site is going to have a site plan review committee process. I mean, that's a pretty big site. And in the past, I've actually served on as a representative from the Bicycle Advisory Committee to the site plan review committees for a couple of other projects. And I think I would propose that we have a member of our committee on that site plan review committee and go to those meetings representing the needs of or maybe we have a person who represents both the pedestrians and the cyclists, or something like that. But that was a practice in the past, and it would be great if it were a practice, going forward. I think particularly for that site because it is, just right contiguous to, one of the major commuter, routes, both pedestrian and bicycle, in Northern Virginia. So I mean, it's probably a little ways off before all that gets really rolling, but if there is a site plan review committee, Ellen, can you find out if there can be representation on that from the bicycle community?
Yeah, I could take a look and ask around. I'm not sure how that works out, how those groups are formed.
Yeah, I think it's typically run through the planning commission. Will have a process by which they nominate folks to that committee. So we probably need to, if you can see how we can reach out to them to see if we can get a seat at the table.
I've been involved in a couple of those. If for my time in Line Park, either Line Park or Line Park adjacent sites, we get a seat at the table. I think the argument can be made that something that is abutting the Custis Trail, we need to be there, and I'm happy to be a part of it if nobody else wants to do it, but somebody needs to be there from our group, not just in the background, but at the table.
Eric.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm for the pedestrian committee. I'm on a good portion of those site plan reviews. So yeah, I think you should try to get on. Matt Pfeiffer is actually the person who I contact and who contacts me with regard to new projects as they come up. So I can pass that information along, and I would hope that you would get a seat at the table there as well.
Yeah, there's so much news with the Custis Trail.
And actually, it's a little bit of an aside, but on the topic of representation, um, we don't currently have someone from the Transportation Commission on this committee, and I think we talked about that, a couple months ago. That's probably something, since Chris Slat's no longer, on this, um, you know, on both. So, have we reached out to Transportation Commission to find out if there's someone there who can be, the representative for us? And
Not,
who would do that? Would it be Cynthia or would it be you, Elwin?
I'm not sure how it worked in the past, but I know the person who runs the TC, my counterpart at the TC. I can check with her to see how that went about last time.
Yeah,
Um,
because I think that was very helpful, I think, for all involved to have that cross representation.
Yeah, I guess is there anybody here who would be interested in serving as that representative if that position is available?
Well, I think we want someone from the Transportation Commission on
Oh,
our
okay, vice
committee,
versa.
not the
Sorry.
other way. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'll check with Amy Dune. I think that's it for now for the Custis Trail.
And you're up again for the next item. So all yours, budgets.
Yeah. So thanks if y'all have had filled out any of the feedback that was due last week with regards to the budget. They were soliciting some feedback from the community to fill out any like priorities that folks may have. But I wanted to reserve some time during this meeting in case y'all wanted to work together for any priorities that you wanted to outline for this year as part of the budget cycle. I believe we've done this previously in previous Februaries during these conversations as they start. But if there's nothing that y'all want to talk about, then it's okay if you want to move on.
So I must admit I did not fill it out. The survey I tried, they had just closed it down. My week has been out of control with EPA deadlines. So, but I have heard complaints that the survey like lumped transportation projects together. And so like whether transportation is a priority, people wanted to say, yeah, like um, active mobility is a priority, but it's all grouped with like car traffic. So um, again, I didn't fill it out, so I don't know. I wasn't able to get into it. Um, yeah. Did others like maybe fill it out, get more information?
I think I filled it out, but I honestly don't remember. I just did what I was told.
Eric.
Yeah, Elwin, are you giving us an opportunity to weigh in on it, even though the survey is closed? Do we have a little bit of time that we could, as a committee, that we could gather some things and send them through you?
Yeah, if y'all wanted to consolidate your thoughts together, I'd be happy to share those.
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea, Cynthia, maybe if we can, by the end of the week or next week or some reasonable time, submit things up through for you to Elwin.
So for those who actually studied the materials, to answer what I guess it's a two-part question, like what are our budget priorities? And then also how does Arlington County bring in revenue, make up the shortfalls? What are the main questions being asked?
Yeah, I guess it's more in terms of like getting priorities for the year. Yeah.
Like how we would want to spend the money.
Yeah, I think this is what we've done the previous years in the
Okay.
form of a letter or something. But yeah, no pressure.
I have this question that I've been wanting to find the answer to that falls on the other side of the equation, like making money. Um, which, and maybe somebody here knows, but every time I cross the bridges over 66, I'm just amazed, like during rush hours, at the really dense, really packed car traffic out towards Tyson's in the morning and back from Tyson's toward DC in the afternoons and evenings. That's when drivers ride for free in that direction. Drivers who go to DC in the morning, they have to pay. Why doesn't Arlington County make money off of the people who drive their cars to Tyson's, who probably make more money even if they work at Tyson's in the companies out there? How come that's free? And how can Arlington like bring in revenue? They pollute our air. They add traffic to our county. Like that seems like we should be charging. Who can answer that?
VDOT.
Is it just up to VDOT?
And
The
that's the sorry,
tolls are
yeah,
there
that's the
to
I'll stop.
sorry, the tolls are there to ensure that the traffic flows at a certain speed, not to that's not ostensibly to generate revenue.
Correct. And I think it was as part of the expanding the, well, because they expanded it from 2 lanes to 3 lanes, and then kind of all the outside the beltway stuff is the privately operated toll roads, but the inside the beltway that's completely VDOT. I can't tell you why they're only doing it in the rush hour direction though.
Interesting. I would have thought that that's a great way to generate revenue. Eric.
Yeah, I think that any changes like that are state level, so that would be, there might be an opportunity, as we look at the legislative priorities next year, that might be something we could at least be one of the things to put up for legislation.
Okay. Interesting. So back to Elwin's initial question, do we have priorities and what might they be for spending the money? Eric.
I think Metro, definitely. I think Vision Zero, we want to make certain that has been a good program. I'd like to see that continue to be funded.
Thank you. And those are both in line with what we submitted last year. Steve.
Yeah, I mean, what does it say in the transportation plan? I mean, I guess we still have the bicycle element from the old one, while the new one is still in process. So I would think, what were our priorities in there? Um, I mean, I guess we can sit here and brainstorm now, but putting that together was a much more comprehensive, thoughtful effort. And I think that's where I would start is what were our priorities? Are they still our priorities? Many of them probably are. And that would be, I think, you know, probably where the money should go. That's the whole point of making a plan in the first place.
Yep. And we did pour through the documents last year and the year before, so I think we probably should pull those out and resubmit, most likely. Unless folks have other ideas, I think that makes sense. All right. Let's see. It's 8:16. We're a little bit over. And next up we have me. Um, so how many of us went to the Vision Zero Action Plan meeting? I think several of us were there. Dana was there and he is not here. Randy, I believe, was there, yeah? And Eric, yes, yes, yes. Okay. Um, so I was there too. I didn't take great notes, but essentially they told us about like the 4 priority areas for Vision Zero: engineering, engagement, behavior change, and policy. And I won't try to summarize what they said, but it was interesting enough. I'll just mention a couple of things. One was that they commented at some length that they essentially they're focusing more on some of the smaller streets and intersections because they said they have fewer tools in the toolbox to deal with the arterial roads. And I thought that was, I mean, interesting and like maybe that's an area where we should push back a bit or like try to explore further because the arterial roads are like where we have the most, I mean, our blood pressure goes up the highest. Um, they are the scariest, the most difficult, the real roadblock or the real disincentive to riding in many cases is like one single road that we or our kids might have to cross. It just seems a little too dangerous. So I don't know, I don't have the answers, but I think it's worth sort of, I mean, since they say we have so few options for fixing the safety hazards on arterial roads, I think that's what we should like explore further, bring in VDOT, have conversations and try to expand that toolbox because those arterials are, in my opinion, exactly where this county like needs the most help. Um, so that was one of the things that came up, and then another item was they say that integrating or coordinating with Arlington Public Schools is one of their priorities. And so my hope is, and I think we need to push on this a little bit too, probably, is that they coordinate with Arlington's vehicle safety office needs to coordinate, or we need to somehow with the APS vehicle safety officers, whoever they are, because we have been told that APS is the laggard in Arlington in terms of vehicle safety. APS apparently their staff do not have interest in the technologies that make school buses safer, school vans, trucks, whatever, like the upgrades that are out there that Arlington County is taking. Um, and then I'll just mention one other thing that came up in that meeting. They said that, if I got this right, that 50% of the deaths at work zones are people riding bikes or pedestrians. And that seems very much tied into our work on MOTs and enforcement and so on. So that was interesting too. Again, an area where we might want to engage further. So anybody have other issues from that meeting or questions or areas that we should run with or other thoughts? And if not, we can move right along. Eric.
Wasn't I don't recall the end of the meeting, but wasn't there some homework that they were asking all the stakeholders to kind of take back? I don't recall exactly what the specifics were, but I think there was some homework for us.
Yeah, I mean, there was homework. Essentially, they'd like all of us to weigh in on their priorities, their document. You know, they have a whole, like a website and I think, a draft report that they would like feedback on. So if anyone would like to work on that, please let us know. And we can certainly provide them some feedback. Kevin, I think you were there too. Weren't you? Were you at that one? I believe so.
I was. I was just trying to pull up the email that actually had the homework in it, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
due the end of February, the 27th. Is just comments on their draft action items, which is just like in a spreadsheet. So that seems fairly easy to put on, like a shared Google sheet and have folks chime in if they want to.
Okay, thanks for checking that. All right, well, why don't we move on? But I don't see Dana. He's traveling, so he probably doesn't have a good connection right now.
I think, Cynthia, that email from Dana this morning said he probably would not make it.
Oh, I missed that. I was working on my formaldehyde deadline, so got it. All right.
That does sound
no
more
Dana.
fun. That does sound more fun. But you do have the link in the agenda. And this is about the lane delineation stuff that we want to be able to provide some concerted effort in providing nice feedback to the county, pro con stuff. So if anybody on the call here has not provided photos or any other kind of feedback, positive and negative, to the onto that document, would encourage you to do so.
Yeah, and last I looked, the document was growing and had good material. This is a tricky time to be to be commenting and making photos of lane delineation because the lanes have completely disappeared in the ice. Um, but if the snow melts, it would be
Yeah.
great if everyone could remember when you're riding in or near a bike lane to keep your eyes out for issues, what you like, what you don't like, in terms of how the lanes are separated from the traffic or from the parked cars. Um, does anyone have ideas? Dana had said he wanted to identify any broad topics that are missing from the table, which we don't have in front of us, but and we should probably recirculate that email. Um, yeah, but if anything, does anything come to mind? Like themes, topics we should include in that document?
When I was looking at the pictures and other submissions, the themes that came out to me the most were um, having proper spacing of the bollards, and or whether you're doing the concrete pillows or the what are those other bumps car stops are, um, spaced so that cars can't get in, but at the same time spaced so that bikes can get in and out. I think that's kind of an important theme on some of those. And then having it so cars can't not just sneak in on the side, but also, having flex posts or something for enter-exit spots so cars aren't improperly using the bike lane for parking or whatever it is they're using it for. I think those are the main issues. I know a lot of roadways have it's a real triage kind of a treatment. Like the road is only so wide and you can't make it wider, so the bike lane isn't going to be buffered the way it ought to be. It isn't going to be, it's using going over grates and curbs and things like that. The bulb outs, they don't change those very often. So there's, I think, best practices uh, that we need to look at. But getting some consistency in there, I think, is helpful for everybody. Eric.
Yeah, one thing I guess I keep thinking is not great, and I've mentioned this to the Vision Zero folks, is some of the lower concrete areas. I don't know if you call them pillows or whatever. But one of the worst areas that I can think of is like outside the CVS near near courthouse. That the visibility is really poor, especially at night, to see these things, and I've run into them before. So I think getting better visibility for some of these, I don't know if you want to call them pillow or concrete curbs that or channels that can really be hard to see and can lead to poor results.
Yeah, that concrete, I'm just going to call it a barricade that you're talking about, is actually the first uh, submission that I put into that shared document. Because yeah, I almost went right into it, going at a good speed when they first put it up, because nobody said they'd put a big block of concrete in the middle of the road of the bike lane and not tell anybody, and it was not light out yet, and it was, they've got at least a bollard there now, so but it's a ridiculous. I can't navigate that without taking my foot off the pedal to go around that thing. So um, I don't really know why that was the right solution there, but and how permanent that is. But yeah, there's a lot of things like that. Just not clear why they're making those decisions.
Well, I think it was the first attempt at kind of I forget what the actual name of the intersection is, but a multimodal intersection that kind of separates cars and bikes and pedestrians with different markings. But I don't think they had enough space to do that correctly. So the channels are very narrow and hard to see.
Yeah, and hardening the space for cars turning right, uh, there's some value to that for sure, but um, unless until they deal with the rest of that block by the CVS there, they're really not providing what they need to, I think. And you go around the corner, the Admiral, that new big building that's up, that's got a half block long cyclo track that nobody knows about because it's weird. It's just kind of hidden in there. And then you go around the corner, uh, and there's a bike lane that's really just parking for cars especially during the uh, weekend events and stuff there. So nothing there is consistent, and that's, I think, one of the problems.
David, jump in.
Yeah, on the other side of the street of, where Aaron is talking about, I think it's Wilson and Veach. There's a major bus stop there, and what I've noticed and what I think is very positive are these floating bus islands that have popped up in various places. I find that they work really well, and I think they're good for everyone. They're good for pedestrians and bicyclists and cars. And on the other side, where I'm talking about, I mean, that's a really dangerous area where the buses kind of go over to the curb and cuts off bikes, and then you have to navigate around the buses and hope they see you. And sometimes they start up, and it's, if they made a floating bus island there, I think that would be a huge positive for safety and for everybody. And I guess I've commented on that a couple of times and some things, but I don't know how those decisions are made or where the bus islands go. I know there was once a presentation about it, but I think those bus islands are great.
The challenge there, I think, though, is that's also starts that right-hand turn lane to go on Beach.
Oh.
I think they'd have to probably slide the bus further up so you wouldn't have the island interfering with that right-hand turn. But I agree. I think if you go the other way down Clarendon, where they built a few of those bus islands, they seem to work pretty well. They have some drainage issues. There's some design details that they still are working through. But I think going down Clarendon, it's much more pleasant. You don't play bus tag quite as much going down through there.
Yeah, and going uphill up Wilson out of Roslyn, there's one or two along there as well, like by Rhodes, I think.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
and I think that one of the things I think we probably ought to help them with as part of this exercise, that I've been meaning to do it, haven't done it yet. Each one is a little different. It's looked like they're experimenting with the designs of how to get the people across, because the one there in front of that Taco Bell has kind of a steel pathway they kind of put in to cross the bike path, while the ones on the other side are more permanent concrete. And one case they put a pipe to actually drain stormwater through it, and in other cases they haven't. So I think if we spend a little time kind of telling them which one of those designs we like the best, it might be useful.
Yeah, when they presented it to us a year or two ago, they were also worrying about regional harmony.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
for vision impaired people, it's very important that these kind of weird implementations get standardized, which is tough.
Yeah.
DC has a lot of the, I don't know if it's metal or some composite where they raise up and go back, the bike lane goes up and back down again. All right, well, I'll make sure that's on the list, and if anybody's got a good photo of that, but I think that's pretty obvious. We like those, and we would like to see them done as goodly as possible.
Wonderful, thank you. And we'll try and get that spreadsheet recirculated to make sure it's higher in our inboxes. All right. Let's see. What else? Mike.
All
Your
right.
turn.
So, okay. Well, I don't have a huge amount to discuss. So we have not met the transportation future vision, whatever we're called. We haven't met since before our last meeting, but they did just send out last week revisions to the policies, which we commented on. I'm going to share my screen here for those that didn't get a chance to see Cynthia's email. They did modify some of them. I don't know where they took any of our recommendations. And I don't know where the changes, let me try to move this across here, folks. I don't see where the changes are that significant. So I'm not going to read through these. I can't even get my computer to do what I want it to do here. You guys are welcome to. They're very similar from my reading to what they had before. They did some consolidating and took out probably some redundant wording, but they're very much what they were before. I think Jillian had put a lot of work into sort of rewording to make them a little more directive. They didn't take any of those recommendations, it doesn't look like. I intend to bring up again the point I've made the last meeting, which is these don't really read like policies. These still kind of read like goals. And I'm just a dumb engineer. So I know there's some of us on here who are either lawyers or really have much more attuned to administrative law and administrative nomenclature. But my simple way of thinking about it is that a policy is something that can be violated, which is to say, you could say, oh, we didn't do X because it violated policy Y. None of these policies seem to lend themselves to that. You couldn't really say, oh no, we couldn't do that project because, it didn't do one of these things. These still seem pretty aspirational, but jump in if I'm misstating what a policy is in sort of the administrative state or what it's intended to be. But other than that, our next meeting is Wednesday. The agenda is to go back over these again. I tend to make those statements. I don't think we have an issue with any of the policy or any of these statements, whatever you want to call them. I think they're consistent with kind of our vision of the direction transportation should be going in. It's just that they're weak. So, and did anyone else get a chance to read it? And anybody else have any thoughts?
Mike, I'll just chime in since I sit in that committee as well, representing a different group. But yeah, I was not impressed with this new draft. I know a lot of people put in a lot of time to try to give them some feedback, and I see a little bit of wordsmithing here or there. It's a discouraging thing. The one that I was most interested in having added to this list was having some statement of that they maintain clean and clear roads and bike paths, and that's not showing up in there anywhere because maintenance is not the same as clean and clear from dirt, from plowing, from snow, from ice, from debris, from construction, and somehow that they still don't think that's the goal, the policy. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Agreed. Eric, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I'm giving you a lot of input today. I think of a policy as like crosswalks would be the policy, and then inside the policy are the specifics about how you either maintain or design or whatever with regard to crosswalks. So some of these aspirational items could help develop a policy, but they're not policies themselves.
Yeah, that was the way I was reading it as well. Now I forget what they said the next step is. Do you guys remember? It's not tools, but strategies. I think from the policies now we move to strategies, which maybe they'll have a little more teeth to them. And maybe that's a good question to ask them how that's actually going to play out. What's the strategy look like? And does any of it give enough teeth that somebody could go to a public hearing and say you shouldn't be doing this project because it violates this policy or this strategy or this whatever the thing is that says we're not going to do this dumb thing you're about to do. None of these really have that level of specificity.
Yeah, I think they keep pushing back and saying that the next level is where we get the specificity. And I'm not sure I agree with them, but I think if you look online at other jurisdictions and their goals and policies and strategies and stuff, I think they're using the same language, meaning the same thing. Yeah, I think they're basically copying other people's homework. So.
Yeah.
In my experience, strategies do not have teeth. Strategies are a process issue. It's like you said, the policy is where you can envision some teeth. So I find that all very odd. The number, I think that we had sort of tried to identify the critical ones and bring down I mean, there's like 23 or 21 or whatever on this list. That seems like a lot of policies, rather than having just a few critical ones and actually standing by them. I don't know if that's worth raising.
Yeah,
but
we can talk about that as well. Well, Jillian also tried to sort them sort of by topic. Yeah.
I thought that was really helpful.
Yeah, I thought it was too. It did help to kind of identify where we had redundancies or things that were kind of really close to each other. And they did do, if you can see, like they combined a few and they did some of that stuff, but 95% of this is the same. So I guess without any other, input, several of us will be on the meeting on Wednesday. We'll report back as to what we hear from here and what opportunities we have for additional input. I'm sure we'll have some sort of homework, but my guess is they're gonna move on from this to whatever the next step is.
Yeah, last comment from me on this, Mike. Did you notice that some of this combining they did seem to weaken any environmental issues?
Yeah.
I mean, they're basically saying that they want a system that can withstand climate disaster, is what they're saying now.
Right.
So not like do our part to avoid a climate disaster, but just make sure that we're build the seawalls tall enough, so to speak.
Right. Well,
frustrating.
Yeah. And to Cynthia's point, they talk about a system that can be resilient to shocks and stressors. I guess it says including weather and emergencies and the impact of climate change, but those are kind of, this implies kind of extreme events, not like a 5-year snowstorm or somebody decides to build a new building and they're going to take up the lane for 3 years while they do it, kind of issues.
Yeah.
But yeah. All righty. Well, if anybody has a chance between now and Wednesday to read what Cynthia sent out, which is basically this document, and wants to share something more specific for me to bring up with the committee, I will be glad to do so.
I have a question for those of you who have been participating, and you don't have to answer it now, but I'd love to have the conversation at some point. We keep hearing from people in the county that the Arlington's Transportation Future MTP process is the best process that Arlington has ever had, and that they want to replicate it in whatever situations they can, because it's just such a model, the best in so and so's career, and so forth. And from what I've heard from several of you, that might not be what we're thinking on the other side of the table, but you don't have to answer it right now, but I'd love to hear, at some
Well,
point to have that conversation.
I mean, I think it's indicative of the, the new, if you want to call it, policy of the county for the last, whatever, 5 or 6 years. Going back to whatever that process that Libby had a few years ago, right? Where we're really trying to engage more of the county and not just have the few having all the input. And so they really have had a lot of public outreach on this thing. I'll give them credit for that. I mean, they're doing lots of pop-ups, they're doing lots of public meetings, lots of opportunities for people to write stuff on sticky notes and stick them up on boards. And they've had, lots of surveys, and they've got lots of data. Every time we have a meeting, they have a lot of data about what they've heard from people in those sorts of settings. So I think that's what they're talking about. They're feeling very good about that, and objectively there is some value in that. But what it has meant is that they're kind of sidelining the more traditional Arlington way of all those, the sort of committee, neighborhood groups, even Fed, all the groups that have traditionally had input, have less now. That's the way I'm reading it. I don't know if anybody else has a different view on it.
I would
Thank
kind of
you. That's
agree.
fascinating.
Yeah, I would kind of agree, Mike, that they like to check all the boxes. And having 15 different stakeholder groups at these meetings for 2 years checks a lot of boxes. Having these surveys and community events checks a lot of post-it notes, checks a lot of boxes. I don't know how much all of our effort is actually affecting the outcome. So I'm probably a little cynical on that, but are we actually helping to direct it in the right direction? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of problem with the direction it's going conceptually. A lot of the words, a lot of what's being said, a lot of the policies, a lot of the goals, I agree with. Right? I think
Yeah.
those make a lot of sense. There could be some more, but my concern is that it's going to be such a sort of a weak, unfocused document at the end of the day that it's not going to really provide guidance in terms of a project by project, funding, how to direct funding type document that's usable that way. That's my concern, and we haven't gotten to the end yet, so I'm withholding final judgment. But that feels like the direction we're going.
Good to be optimistic.
Or at least not totally pessimistic yet, Aaron. That's my goal.
Thank you. That helped me a lot in understanding this.
Yeah.
All right. It is 8:50. We're doing pretty well here. Let's see. BAC business and announcements. transportation project tracking. Owen, do you want to try that one?
Yeah, we talked about this last month as we were talking about the calendar for the year. The idea of having project-specific things being like organized in a way where individual BAC members could keep track of projects and serve as a go-between between like the PMs and the committee, similar to what we've been discussing for the MTP refresh. So no new news since then, really. There is some movement that our communication staff has been doing behind the scenes, and they'll be putting together like a list of projects and batches, uh, probably on a quarterly basis. So far we have like just high level things uh, that have been outlined, such as this Arlington Boulevard Trail improvements and the multimodal improvements along South George Mason Drive. But we'll have more details in the next few months as they get those batches of projects together. But obviously the budget is complicating things, so some things are slowing down. I guess I'll stop there before I go into the bike Arlington updates. If y'all have any questions so far. And sorry, I'm getting sniffly. That being said, I'm gonna read off some of these bike Arlington updates that were shared with me. So I apologize for reading. Bike to work day planning is underway. The steering committee selected a purple heather t-shirt and a purple bike design for promotional materials, which will be finalized this month and then distributed in March. The MLK Day of Service cleanup last month drew 179 volunteers who collected trash, sorted recycling, and removed discarded items along the WNOD and 4 Mile Run trails. Bike Arlington is currently preparing for the winter bike to work day on February 13th at Gravely Point. They'll be joining partner organizations and we'll be sharing information about the Long Bridge construction projects and impacts along the trails. And Bike Arlington staff are currently working on printing more bike comfort maps with a new batch coming through. That should get us through the fall of this year. Let's see, I'm going to share my screen real quick. I just heard some breaking news a few hours ago that the portions of the WNOD trail will be closed for this construction project that DPR will be doing as part of the Bluemont Park tennis courts. So you may have seen this in your newsletter somewhere, or you might have seen this map somewhere, but they're proposing to close this stretch of the WNOD trail from Wilson Boulevard to the Bluemont Junction Trail head. So they'll be, oh, sorry, for my run trail, sorry. So they'll be having a detour with signage out there for about a week on February 15th as part of this construction refresh for the Bluemont Park tennis courts. Let's see, and then the last update I have is related to.
So the construction is on the 4 Mile Run Trail, not the WOD?
That's correct. Sorry about
Okay.
that.
All right. Got it.
So the detour is on the WNOD trail, and it should last for
Got
a
it.
week. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry for the confusion. And then the last update is just giving y'all a heads up that Metro Rail will be closing at the Crystal City Metro Station and at the DCA Metro Station as part of the Crystal City new entrance that's under construction right now.
Do we have the schedule, especially for a national airport?
Let me see. They mentioned that it'll close on the weekends starting on February 14th for 3 weekends for the DCA Metro Station, but then 10 weekends for the Crystal City Metro Station, starting Valentine's Day.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. Are they going to provide bus service or?
Yeah, for sure. They'll have shuttle service in case
Okay.
anybody needs to catch a flight.
Great.
Yeah, that's it for me.
Well, we made up for the time. Does anyone have additional issues, questions, things to raise? Randy.
I I sent to the list a message about a new resolution that the Transportation Commission of the Civic Federation is about to launch. I was concerned about it because it read to me like something that might have been written 20 years ago in Arlington, but maybe not now. I mean, I don't think the word vulnerable appears anywhere in it. There are just a lot of things that are completely car centric. There is some acknowledgement that there are other means of transportation, but it's all about cars to me. So anybody else who is a Civic Federation delegate, please take a look at it. I put the link in there to the actual 23 element resolution. I'm going to be working on some proposals for changing it, and we'll be at the, what is it, February 20 meeting of the committee, which I think is virtual. And I just, anybody else who has any interest in Civic Federation stuff, please take a look at that message. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess my hand is up. So Ellen had done this great job last month, I think it was, of putting together a first draft of an ongoing calendar of, sort of a calendar of topics for discussion over a period of time. And could I suggest we come back to that next month and take another look at it? I think we had given you some ideas. All of us had weighed in on some ideas about how to make that really useful. And I think we were all really thankful that you took that first effort. So appreciate that. But I think we identified a lot of things that we should cover over the course of, whatever cycle we want, 12 to 18, 24 months. So I think that was worthwhile. And I think bringing it back would be a good idea.
Yeah, for sure. I could definitely do that. I definitely have some confirmations already from folks who want to attend future meetings, so I could definitely give you a more updated version.
Yeah, cool.
All right. Anyone else before we call it a night? I think we're good. All right. Giving y'all back 1 extra minute to your evening. Enjoy it. And we'll see you next month.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you so much, Cynthia.
Thank you.